It is in warning, it doesn't sound in warning. So today we have our new director, Cynthia Haynes, speaking in our research forum. And as a way of introduction, I'm going to read something that Charlotte and I wrote for Cynthia's, we were going to read it at the party, but it just didn't really seem like the time, the kairos was not right. So I'm going to read some of that now, and I'll let you know where Charlotte's voice is, so that I'm not appropriating her parts. On behalf of the RCID student body, we would like to just say a few words of welcome to our new director, Cynthia Haynes. Most of you already know Cynthia quite well. I'd say probably everybody in this room knows Cynthia quite well through her teaching and mentorship in the program. We would like to thank her now for her dedication to the students of RCID, both in the past and in this new position. This is Charlotte's part now. Cynthia, it's been a pleasure and joy to take courses with you and have you as a mentor and sharer. You are kind, generous, and brilliant. You have taught us so much about thinking, writing, teaching, and understanding, or to stand under something. You taught me that it is okay to write myself. You taught me that a rose is without why. And that's back to me. Taking Cynthia's seminars completely upset my writing process. I was very nervous to see myself in my writing for the first time. And I met with Cynthia to ask if it was okay to pursue a project for my dissertation that was so close to my own personal trauma. I was shaking from head to toe during that meeting. Cynthia listened to my proposal and then calmly told me that I had to say yes to myself. It was the most meaningful moment I've had in academia. Cynthia, you taught me how to write offshore, and I can't thank you enough. Back to Charlotte's voice. I know that you picked up some of these ways of reading, thinking, and writing from studying with Richter and his colleagues at the Arlington School. But you have so much more than the Arlington School that you bring to us. You bring your compassionate heart, your willingness to show up and listen to your students, your encouragement and commitment to teaching them to forge their own paths. We are so glad that you've earned the position as director of our new program, so you can carry forward the foundations of our program in new and exciting ways. This program is truly a family, and you are an essential part of it as the mom of air. You deserve this more than anyone, and we are also happy to have you as the director of our program and as our speaker today. Without further ado, thank you.
Thank you so much. It's hard to start. I have to say a couple of things, disclaimers. I'm in this slot today because I couldn't get anyone else to do it early in the semester talk. I don't have anything ready. So I thought I would go ahead and give a talk that I gave at C's in a very, very truncated version. This is going to be a long talk because it's going to be double duty. Our first year students in seminar tonight have been assigned readings, most of the readings in this talk, the irregular and the hyper. And so it will be a sort of prologue for our discussions for tonight. But it's also a forthcoming publication in a collection called Responding to the Sacred, an inquiry into the limits of rhetoric, coming out from Penn State Press, Penn State University Press. And with that, I'm just going to start. So if we don't have time for questions, you'll know why. So the title of the talk is Sacred Passages and Rhetorical Passwords. And the beginning is an excerpt from a Gnostic tractate, an anonymous tractate called The Thunder Perfect Mind. I was sent forth from the power. Do not be ignorant of me, for I am the first and the last. I am the honored one and the scorned one. I am the whore and the holy one. I am the wife and the virgin. I am the mother and the daughter. I am the bride and the bridegroom. I am the silence that is incomprehensible. I am the knowledge of my inquiry, and the finding of those who seek after me, and the command of those who ask of me, and the power of the powers in my knowledge of the angels, who have been sent at my word, and of the gods in their seasons by my counsel. and of the spirits of every man who exists with me, and of women who dwell within me. So I begin with an anonymous female revealer, a deity, who, according to the translator, George McGray, proclaims and reveals herself using antithesis and paradox. McGray suggests that such rhetorical devices as antithesis and paradox may be used to proclaim the absolute transcendence of the revealer, whose greatness is incomprehensible and whose being is unfathomable. Gnosticism arose in the first few centuries AD, and it takes its name from the Greek gnosis, or having knowledge. A particular knowledge, though, achieved through self-revelation, or secret knowledge. Some Gnostic teachings promote the idea that both male and female deities shared in the creation of the world. For the early Christian fathers, this was heretical. And Gnostics and their texts and teachings eventually declined, though variations of Gnosticism persisted underground, so to speak. In 1945, an Egyptian farmer discovered a large jar containing 13 bound codices that collected 52 Gnostic tractates. And these hidden texts have revived interest in Gnosticism ever since. For my purposes, the Thunder Perfect Mind serves as a conceptual passageway between the more ancient pre-Christian Eleusinian mystery religions that were contemporaneous with the early sophistic and rhetorical tradition. All three of these traditions, the Eleusinian mystery rites, the sophistic rhetoric tradition, and Gnosticism, share two key traits: the concealed and sacred nature of knowledge, and the concealed, forgotten role of the feminine. By definition, the sacred belongs to no category or system of representation. It is beyond what can be communicated, perhaps beyond all knowing. Rhetoric, on the other hand, takes that barrier as its foremost challenge, seeking to permeate the impermeable, to relate to the unrelatable, to unveil so as to reveal, to unconceal. Rhetoric acts within the sacred. Wherever language is, rhetoric is there to trace its energy, or energeia, as Aristotle terms it. Energy works to conduct thought. It moves thought through the passages between the historically masculine and secret feminine characteristics of rhetoric within the sacred. In this paper, I examined the feminine character of rhetoric and in the sacred by situating the two in a different kind of relationship, one that forms an organic passageway outside of the masculine history of rhetoric and logic that we have inherited since Plato. I have in mind a passageway through which things come and go, ebb and flow, to and fro. To enter this forgotten passage, we'll need passwords. Helene Cixous likens them to wizard words that deliver love's password in parentheses, in clandestinity. For Lucy Irigaray, this passage, having been forgotten, must not only be remembered, we must learn again how to pass through it. And one such way is to weave rhetoric and the sacred into a passing through this forgotten passage, and the passwords with which we gain entrance to what Cixous deems the answer itself, the one that was waiting for us, even the one that is secret. To overrule the secret that is also sacred was the project of philosophy in early Christianity. I take us on this passage back to lost passages and passwords in order to reassert a lost connection to the feminine that is the within of rhetoric's relation to the sacred. They are one and the same, though not the logic of the same, proposed and accomplished for millennia in Plato's allegory of the cave from the Republic. As Irigaray reads Plato's project in her essay, Plato's Hystera, she puts us in the shackles of a Platonic attack on the Hystera Protera. In Irigaray's assessment, Plato's project prescribes and overdetermines in silence the whole system of metaphor, shutting it in like the prisoners in Plato's cave, chained up like ourselves, I might say, backs to the origin, staring forward, chained up more specifically by the effects of a certain language, of certain norms of language that are sometimes called concatenation or chains of propositions. Accomplished with no sleight of hand. It was fulfilled the moment he crafted a metaphorical chain of propositional logic. As Irigaray tells us, the cave, described like a womb, was the representation of something always already there, of the original matrix or womb, which these men cannot represent since they are held down by chains that prevent them from turning their heads toward what is more primary, toward the proteron, which is in fact the hystera. Our heads need to be returned toward the hystera and its sacred, secret relation to rhetoric and feminine. And to put us on the path of this turning, I first discuss the Eleusinian mystery religions of the Hellenistic era from 550 BC to 170 AD, where we find not only the sacred worship of goddesses and female genitalia, we hear the voices of initiates repeating the first passwords required to witness the secrets revealed therein. Next, I examine the devastating shift from the sacred feminine to masculine logic by drawing from Martin Heidegger's treatment of the Stoics' vision of logos or monarchos, the dissemination of God's seed or word. Alongside Heidegger's version of the history of logic, itself an alternative history, I focus on Andrea Nye's alternative feminist history of logic briefly. And finally, I navigate ancient primary sacred passages with new rhetorical passwords, found in both Zizou and Irigaray's readings of philosophy and phallocentrism. As a means of conducting rhetorical history, the primary method I've chosen of naming passwords also goes by another name, philology. However, philos, or love, and logos, word or reason, are themselves fraught terms that are bound together inauspiciously. For if we are to understand the relation between rhetoric and the sacred, we must understand the states and stakeholders of that which subsumed the feminine precisely in order to usurp her powers and install itself as the only path to reason, which became the secular god in logic, that continues to this day to shackle and mimic the sacred feminine source of life and love. What I hope to show is that when situated inside of the sacred, and it always already is, rhetoric does its thing. It turns and returns. It offers up passwords to mark access points we would otherwise have missed. How to find these passwords once we are attuned to doing so is not actually that difficult. And this section is called elusive. If we establish through an etymological sleight of hand a loose connection between secret, to separate, and sacred, to consecrate, we're already by necessity forging this association through the feminine, separated from the consecration by the church fathers. However, some pre-Christian pagan religions that worship goddesses such as Demeter and Persephone in the Eleusinian mystery religions required a secret password before one became initiated into the mysteries, the sacred details of which were to be kept secret. According to Walter Burkett, Clement of Alexandria notes that the password in Greek, the word for password, synthema, of the Eleusinian mysti served as a kind of passport inside. Burkett correctly notes that the myths and activities surrounding the ceremonies were kept secret, but we know that they were profaned occasionally through revelations such as when a drunken Alcibiades likely spilled the beans at the party recounted in Plato's Symposium. Burkett's discussion of the mysteries is rather tame, however, suggesting that the point of the ritual was for the initiate to drink a concoction made of barley, or kykion, and to come forward to an altar on which a basket containing an ear of corn was placed. Merely to witness this amounted to a kind of rebirth. Burkert concludes that the password for the synthema gives information on successive stages of the initiation rites, yet in veiled terms such as one initiate would use to another to let him know that he has fulfilled all that is prescribed. I fasted. I drank from the kukyan. I took out of the kiste, worked, and placed back in the basket, and from the basket into the kiste. Clement himself apparently was unable to give further details, but intimated that this must be something obscene. Burkert's account suggests that the ritual concerned the experience of life overcoming death. In the background, he writes, there appears once more the sacred deed in general, the encounter with death in sacrifice as such. Just another way of saying the certainty of life attained by intoxication and sexual arousal goes together with insight into the cycle of nature. The problem with this assessment is that in its focus on death, it ignores that the cycle of nature begins with birth. It begins in the first passageway. But more about that soon. A more nuanced account of how and why the synthema was necessary, not to mention spelling out the more obscene aspects of the mysteries. According to Malonas, the synthema was a password required upon first entering the telesterion where the mystery rites would be performed. It was repeated by the telites, those who were being initiated for the first time. And after having drunk the barley potion, kukyan, they would repeat, I fasted, I drank the kukyan. They would not have stated, as Clement of Alexandria maintains the second part of the synthema, I took from the kiste, having done my task, I placed the basket, and from the basket into the kiste. The reason for this, Malonas argues, is that the telites were not handling anything during the ritual. They were merely there to see the hierophant, the high priest, show them what was inside the basket. All the testimony regarding the Hera refers to their revelation and not their manipulation. The high priest of Eleusis is called the hierophant because he shows the hierarchy. He shows the mysteries. And according to Plutarch, Alcibiades' impeachment was for committing crimes against the goddess of Eleusis by mimicking the mysteries and showing them forth to his companions in his house, wearing a robe such as the hierophant wears when he shows the sacred secrets to the initiates. The manipulation theory, which involved the presence of a female pudenda, chitis, in the basket, varies from simply handling the chitis to rubbing it over one's body to actually taking a phallus and joining it with the chitis in an act of creation or rebirth as a child of Demeter. Both Burkert and Malonas reject these theories of what was exactly revealed in the ritual. In CDC Reeves' article on Alcibiades in the Symposium, he not only connects Alcibiades' drunken proclamation of love for Socrates to his earlier alleged profanation of the mysteries, he also points the reader to how Plato's Phaedrus sets up a forgotten passageway to be explored in the next section. According to Reeve, based on the contrast between farming and writing arguments, comes an equally telling analogy. The man who has seeds of knowledge about what is just, what is beautiful, and what is good will have no less sensible an attitude toward his seeds than the farmer. But when he is in earnest about them, he instead makes use of the craft of dialectic, and taking a fitting soul, plants and sows in it arguments accompanied by knowledge, met epistemis logos, which are able to help themselves and the man who planted them, and are not without fruit but contain a seed from which others grow in other soils, capable of rendering it forever immortal, and making the one who has it as happy as it is possible for a man to be. Living arguments, logoi, are now explicitly likened to seeds, spermata, something on which the Stoics, with their spermatocoid logoi, or seminal principles, will capitalize. So we're now in the vicinity of analogy, or analogos, and metaphor, and the masculine creation of logic out of its own twisted version of the passage from seed to plant, and by inference the passage from the sacred to logic, without the rhetorical leap over the feminine such a passage involves. Before we hear from Arigore about how Plato's allegory of the cave supplants a more originary metaphor, indeed a move that Arigore likens to the obliteration of the most originary forgotten passage, the vagina, it is helpful to hear what exactly is at stake in this forgetting. In Arigore's reading, Plato's allegory, in which men are chained facing the back wall of a cave that is the likeness of a womb, hystera, obliterates not only the forgotten passage, but also the very fact that it is forgotten. Arigore writes, "It is within the project encircling, limiting the horizon in which the hystera is made metaphor, that this dance of difference is played out. Whatever points of reference outside the system and the self are afforded for relating them one to another, bringing them together, making them metaphor. For metaphor, that transport, the displacement of the fact that passage, neck, transition have been obliterated, is reinscribed in a matrix of resemblance, family likeness. Inevitably so. Likenesses of the cave, likenesses within the cave, likenesses of the transfer of the cave, likenesses of copies and reflections that have a part to play in the cave. Where man is turned to face only straight ahead, cannot escape the process of likeness, even though he represents or reproduces himself as like. He is always already a captive of repetition. We turn now, as if chained ourselves, facing a wall, back to where Plato's obliteration took us, which is further and further away from the sacred forgotten passage, to look at the hardening processes in which logic and reason seal the passage away for all time. And in that hardening, cast away the passwords with which it might have been possible to remember the feminine, to relive our own passage from the womb through the vagina into world, the password itself to be explored soon. This section is Logos conceived. In his interrogation of being, Heidegger finds that where human beings dwell is a paradox. On more than one occasion, Heidegger claims language is the house of being. In other words, we are most at home in our essential dwelling place, our ethos, in language. But paradoxically, the essence of language is unrepresentable and antithetical. Just as the female revealer of the thunder perfect mind reminds us by saying, I am the silence that is incomprehensible, and the idea of his remembrance is frequent. I am the voice whose sound is manifold, and the word whose appearance is multiple. I am the hearing which is attainable to everyone, and the speech which cannot be grasped. I am a mute who does not speak, and great is my multitude of words. But in his attempt to unveil the nature of being in language, Heidegger turned to the pre-Socratic philosophers' understandings of logos, specifically Heraclitus and Parmenides. In a bit of casuistic stretching, let us consider this one of our forgotten passages between rhetoric and the sacred, between being and language, between ethos and logos, where the synthema or password is the word between. Heidegger's encounter with Heraclitus is a search for the primordial point of tension or relation between being and logos. In an introduction to metaphysics, Heidegger claims that logos does not let what it holds in its power dissolve into an empty freedom from opposition, but by uniting the opposites maintains the full sharpness of their tension. The point of tension is in actuality not a fixed point so much as a point in motion. Within the sphere of motion, there are conflicting forces that set up the possibility for destruction or harmony. Heidegger believes that being is constituted as such, a process also described by Heraclitus. Taking the popular interpretation of Heraclitus to task, Heidegger argues that when we sum up his philosophy into panta re, or everything flows, these words do not mean that everything is merely continuous. No, they mean that the essence as a whole in its being is hurled back and forth from one opposition to another. And being is the gathering of this conflict and unrest. In fragment 53, Heraclitus says, conflict, or polemos, is for all that is present, the creator that causes to emerge, but also for all, the dominant preserver. As Heidegger understands it, Heraclitus uses polemos to name the conflict that first created opposites, such as gods and men. Using a familiar illustration, Heraclitus calls attention to a well-known drink in Greece, kykion, associated with the Eleusinian mysteries. Kykion is made by stirring barley and cheese into a cup of wine, but the mixture had to be kept in motion until the moment it was drunk. And the point of Heraclitus' lesson is the kykion falls apart if it is not being stirred. This section is Logos Harmonicos and the dissemination of logic. In preparation for examining the dissemination of logic, Heidegger reminds us of two things. First, he claims that to think against logic does not mean to break a lance for the illogical, but simply to trace in thought the logos and its essence which appeared in the dawn of thinking. That is, to exert ourselves for the first time in preparing for such a reflection. Second, irrationalism may be a way out of rationalism, but it is an escape which does not lead into the open, but merely entangles us more in rationalism. Because it gives rise to the opinion that we can overcome rationalism by merely saying no to it, whereas this only makes its machinations the more dangerous by hiding them from view. In a brief excursus on the history of logic and the introduction to metaphysics, Heidegger explains that logic emerged in the curriculum of the Platonic Aristotelian schools, and is therefore an invention of school teachers, not philosophers. Rigore, like Heidegger, also places much of the blame on teachers, although she equates teachers with philosophers. For in Plato's cave, the tragedy is played out between him who holds the truth and him who holds the fantasy. None of the scenographic apparatus is revealed to those chained in the cave. It is only through some new hocus pocus of reason, if you like, that the teacher forces him to see in those little statues alone the cause, less disguised, truer, closer to being, of what had once captivated him. For in making his demonstration, the teacher only lifts the veil in order that he may subsequently conceal the motives of desire, the different kinds of tropisms, even the effects of giddiness you get from swinging from the chandelier idea, in capital I. What most concerns Heidegger about its history is how logic came to suppress the kind of thinking that allows being to become manifest. What we are most concerned with is how logic came to suppress the sacred feminine, which I have characterized as rhetorical insofar as rhetoric functions within the sacred, and as revelatory insofar as her secret passages reveal our feminine origins. While rhetoric is not only associated with the sacred feminine, it does maintain historical affiliations, some not so positive, with the other tradition of truth, philosophy. Thus, like Heidegger, we are also concerned by the kind of logic he finds in the words of the philosopher Hegel. Quote, the logical is the absolute form of truth, and what is more, it is also the pure truth itself. Heidegger's brief history of logic is laid out in his distinction between being and thinking. And we begin to sense in this section that Heidegger is witnessing firsthand the dangers of these distinctions. And we now know the dangers of not using the symptom of password between. The distinction between being and the ought, or ethics, which Heidegger says belongs wholly to the modern era, is given even less attention than his 3 history of logic, roughly 4 pages. Even though he would later disclaim this remark as a rejection of political science, Heidegger's ethos finally succumbs to his synopticism when he concludes that the works that are being peddled about nowadays as the philosophy of National Socialism, but have nothing whatever to do with the inner truth and greatness of this movement, namely the encounter between global technology and modern man, have all been written by men fishing in the troubled waters of values and totalities. In short, what Heidegger does not seem to take into account is that how logic achieves its power has always interested those for whom its rule has been oppressive, more so than those for whom it serves to empower. This should not surprise us, especially as we are engaged in the recovery of rhetoric in the sacred, and thus of the sacred feminine, who proclaimed in her paradoxical way, I am the one you have scattered, and you have gathered me together. And other history of logic. Precisely for those whom logic and reason has oppressed, Andrea Nye's book, Words of Power, a feminist reading of the history of logic, traces the birth of autonomous reason from the perspective of those who were systematically excluded from its circle of power. Nye initiates her project with a return to the trio of classical thinkers, the pre-Socratics, the Sophists, and the philosopher kings. Frame a new use for the term logos. When Gorgias rejects Parmenides' logic that what is and what is not are the same, he introduces the notion of ontological difference, but a difference that is not attached to morality. Gorgias believed that the rhetorician is not concerned with moral questions, but with understanding the technique, with teaching the linguistic strategies for defense against the external force of the logos. In other words, Nye claims the knot that reknits the conceptual relations torn by the sophist is difference. Plato, however, introduces a new twist on difference. Nye explains that in the sophist dialogue, Plato rejects the reduction of logos to a simple word for speech. She identifies the linchpin of Plato's attack on sophistry as follows. Logos no longer can be the simple, ordinary what someone says, but as required by logical division, it must be restricted to statements that are either true or false, and statements that reflect correct relations between formal objects. Plato's division restores discussion, but this is a discussion from which reciprocity has been removed. Logical division makes possible a conversation in which one party is in complete control of the discussion. Sound familiar? At this point in the tale, Nye continues, Aristotle divides the syllogism to make logic produce new knowledge and bring it down to the level of real human interaction. And this may sound like a more egalitarian model, but real human interaction is still confined to interaction between an elite group of participants. In Aristotle's theory of politics, logic was a badge of office, a way to identify that one who can plan things with his mind and is therefore the ruler by nature. The exclusionary nature of his system meant that women, slaves, workers, and conquered peoples, all those who did not participate in dialectical contests, were expected to accept the superior reasoning of their masters. Thus, according to Nye, the purpose of logic was not to open the discussion to all viewpoints, with the purpose of establishing a consensus, but to establish a model of discourse that excluded what was contradictory or irrational. Between Plato and Aristotle, logic takes several interesting turns. Later, the Stoics, Zeno in particular, seem to revert back to the pre-Socratic notion of logos as the grammar of the cosmos. Nye explains, however, that although the Stoics replaced Platonic ideal forms and Aristotelian substance, their notion of logos for monikos re-injects logic with yet another transcendental form. They believe that God's sperm disseminated logic throughout the universe. Thus, by being turned away from essence and form, Nye suggests, Language is finally accorded the status needed to perform as the actual instrument of rationality. The Stoics perfected the syllogism, though they compressed it into a conditional expression if-then logic or propositional logic. Unlike Aristotle's model, questions of ethos were not relevant in a dialectical debate because witnesses could not be trusted and the truth could be distorted. The purpose of speaking was no longer to give an account of events through intersubjective dialogue, but success in a competition with fixed rules. Truth becomes then merely the avoidance of contradiction. At this point, Nye claims logic begins to function autonomously. A distance has to be created between our experience and what we say. Propositions are true insofar as they fit the facts, which are not perceptions or relations, but the structures and the objects that correspond to logical form. The Stoics invent a language insulated from what people say and what they say about it, A realm of logical objects not dependent on any reality. Logic had finally freed itself from conceptual content. In their logic, the logician has the ability to shape and control his instincts and so bring instinct into harmony with right reason. In essence, as the dissemination of logos grammaticos spreads logic over a passive crowd, they are suddenly capable of bringing order to thought and of administering the possessions of those less fortunate, that is, those not in possession of logic. In the Stoic cosmology, the active is the divine logos. The passive is the physical substance in the world. Nye reveals that this logic kept women out of the affairs of state because the feminine principle was passive. In addition, logic helped to quell rebellious cultures. It silenced others and rendered subjects speechless, unable to voice their reservations. In short, Nye argues, language is now capable of generating its own cosmos, the cosmos of sexist, racist, ethnocentristic culture. So many women can attest to the bulldozing of the feminine principle into a passive, secret, forgotten passage where the guardians, logicians, keep vigilant watch over the real prisoners in chains. And we're not only shackled, we're invisible. No sacred passwords can penetrate their fortified walls, their denials, their dichotomies, their hocus-pocus peep show of self-stimulating performances. Forget the apparatus of transitions. I'm going to play the ghost. The Rigore knows that a ghost has never been stopped by a wall, or even a door, much less by a curtain or a veil. For the paths within the cave, like tracheas, are full of sharp edges and points. For her company is represented to him here as thorny, pregnant with danger. This is called Secret Passages. It's going to take every ounce of rhetorical courage for me to tell the secret sacred story hidden behind Rigore's and Sixtu's readings of Plato and Philosophy. The words on the pages of their respective and disrespectful treatments of philosophy's abduction of the sacred and of the forgotten passage are as full of woman as a page can be, though we all know that the boundaries of this fully justified print format lose sight of her passage, of all our passages, as soon as it is bound. The courage of rhetoric's capacity to unconceal is its sacred bond with the feminine. But to name this bond sacred is still an attempt by the masculine language or grammar we have inherited. An attempt to name a hidden space, a forgotten passage, in order to order them to move across a sacred path by ignoring, pushing aside the soft, pulsating rhythms that sent us all on the way to world. I'm not trying to be cryptic. I'm trying to tell a very secret story set within a rhetorically amniotic, hence messy event. Let's go back to the cave hysteria that Rigore staged for us earlier. It's a long passage in more ways than one. In that cave, inside that cave, burns a fire in the image of a sun. But there is also a path, no doubt made in the image of the conduit, neck, passage, corridor, which goes up, out of the cave, toward the light of day, toward the sight of day. A conduit which is taken up and reproduced inside the cave. A repetition, representation, figuration reenacted within the cave of that passage which we are told leads in and out of the path in between, of the go-between path that links two worlds, two modes, two methods, two measures of replicating, viewing, representing, in particular the sun, the fire, the light, the objects in the cave. Of this passage that is neither outside nor inside, that is between the way out and the way in, between access and egress. This is a key passage, even when it is neglected, or even especially when it is neglected. For when the passage is forgotten, by the very fact that it is being reenacted in the cave, it will found, subtend, sustain the hardening of all dichotomies, categorical differences, clear-cut distinctions, absolute discontinuities, all the confrontations of irreconcilable representations between the world outside and the world inside, between the world above and the world below, between the light of the sky and the fire of the earth, between the gaze of the man who has left the cave and that of the prisoner, between truth and shadow, between truth and fantasy, between truth and whatever veils the truth, between reality and dream, between the intelligible and the sensible, between good and evil, the one and the many, between anything you like. All oppositions that assume the leap from a worse to a better, an ascent, a displacement upward, a progression along the line, vertical, phallic even. But what has been forgotten in all those oppositions, and with good reason, is how to pass through the passage, how to negotiate it, the forgotten transition, the corridor, the narrow pass, the neck. And here the symptom of between must be spoken woman to woman. That is the twin to the between we reveal was lost on her. Is it no wonder, given the through line from the Eleusinian mysteries to Plato, to the Stoics, to Heidegger, to Nye, to Irigaray, that Irigaray says there is no end to it. This cave produces more ghosts than any other, even if they are sometimes clean, clear, sunlit ghosts, washed of their uterine contaminants and their graveyard corruption. We could go on, but my story has waited long enough, too long. It's beyond my trachea now. This is called rhetorical passport. Cicely knows the secret. She writes, language as tricks are the allies of the artist who goes into resistance or exile. Every language artist is an artist of the struggle against the condemnation to death. Sentences and their words always lead elsewhere than the place we were expecting them. Thus did I begin my essay with, I began with a female revealer, only to discover in the passage from here to there, and there to here, that she is me. Césaire is with me, whispering in my ear. Why is it so difficult to write? The most difficult border passage, the most torturous. We cannot make it on purpose, not wittingly. It's a dream. It doesn't obey us. It's a dream. It's a wind. The wind blows at its guide. That being said, and the saying is not nothing, she sets up the password where I am headed. She writes, now I'm going to make my silent declaration of love to a person I've loved since birth. Double birth. Ours, like the mother is born of a child's birth. Go away. I love your departures. I give you complete freedom. This is the condition for my being able to hope for your comings. Hope, heart beating, hope spiced with fear, fear that this is never without hope's elan, contraction and dilation. This is the rhythm of my organism in love, and the freedom I give you takes nothing from you. The first gesture that links us was to have cut the umbilical cord, each one for herself. You can go. I'll wait for you. I'm not waiting. You can come. I'm not like you. You're not like me. I don't mistake you for me. I don't think I know you. Leave, my love, you who's just left me. Say, I. The first password is I. I have fasted. I have drunk the cucumber. Or, I had a baby in secret. The father was a preacher's son, who later became a preacher himself. Blowuses were Marcos. He denied the child was his, but I knew. The child knew. I was 17. It was 1970. And like 4 million other girls and young women between 1950 and 1973, I made a decision to surrender my child for adoption. I lived in a home for unwed mothers for 4 months. I paid the $250 total rent from my earnings that previous summer as a tennis instructor. I bore a daughter in secret, without my family present, though they were loving and supportive and nearby. The delivery room was dark. I was given no anesthetic. I was told to push. I pushed. Then I was told to stop pushing. And I said, I can't. They covered my nose with a rubber cup and told me to breathe. And during my dream, I was separated from her and she from me. Now I need Sue to bear witness to what happened next. The first gesture was to have cut the umbilical cord, each one for herself. You can go. I'll wait for you. But after she left, I had to wait 18 years before I would see her for the first time. She was taken down the hall of the nursery in the hospital. I was told to walk the halls for exercise after I gave birth, and I would drift toward the nursery. There was one room beside the visible babies that had its curtain drawn. She was there, alone, and I was on the outside, alone. It was like a dream but not a dream. Cynthia likens it to the story of the hen who doesn't recognize her egg. With the child, it's the same. With the work of art, it's the same. And so she was taken to a family who loved her very much from that day forward. I had to deal with my abandonment of her for many years. But then after this long fast, I drank the cucumber. Cynthia understands. She stands under me. She writes, this is love. I will never know how I love you. I love you, I don't even know it. You will never know how I love you. Not understanding is a way of holding myself in front and of letting come. Transverbal, trans-intellectual relationship, sacred. This loving the other in submission to the mystery. It's accepting, not knowing, or feeling with the heart. I'm speaking in favor of closeness without any familiarity. How good it is not to understand you. I don't understand you with an incomprehension so vast it surpasses all my great understanding. But I pass through an incomprehension of you towards you, one that doesn't abandon you. It's a great activity of feeling and not translating. I say to you, world. And the second password is world. She, my daughter, is of the world. I moved about in the world, wandering, searching for her, finally searching for her in the databases until she was found. We were joyfully reunited. 18 years of world between us, the password called world is not secret, it's the passage that is secret. Yet even the world, which we know is fatal, cannot only be a password, for it passes eventually without us. Into an unknown passage we pass through with everyone. Yet we do have one more password I've saved for last. That Cynthia renders with a rhetorical if-then argument, not born of the masculine if-then logic. She writes, if there were a word, then it would be the most ordinary, immense word, synonym of infinity, distracted word, unnoticed, word that passes so humbly, almost useless, a word that could just as well fall silent. It would be, yes, you have recognized it. Yes. It would be yes. The raw word, the believable, the unbelievably vast, the open door to all that will come, a courageous word, open-handed, yes, I receive, I let go. I tell you yes. I begin us with a yes. Yes begins us. I believe this. It is believable because I have lived this yes in the world, and I, in the surrender of my daughter, in my non-recognition of her, in my finding her for the first time, seeing her for the first time sitting on a sacred horse. The yes of the natural world. The kukion that must be drunk while it swirls in motion, always in motion, not conceived via the logos or moniker. I end with a female revealer intoxicated from the sacred in rhetoric that took 48 years to reveal itself as neither inside nor outside, but as a sacred passage begun with the words, stop pushing. I do not say I can't. I say yes. I say I. My daughter is. This is why I can say to the world, I am the whore and the holy. There's nothing else. You can just sit in silence, or we can speak. I might have should have given a trigger warning. If anyone needed that, I'm sorry.
How do you feel?
Well, now I'm shaking. I wasn't shaking during the talk. I gave this talk at 4Cs, but I took out the whole middle on the logic and history one, and just did the city of history rights, connected it to the last part. But, yeah.
Thank you for courage to repeat something like this out loud. It brings up some questions too about, always, maybe not questions, but just how we ranked inside the university and the difference between doing exploration and production. And I know that's something that we've talked about before, and this connection to even phallocentrism and argumentation, logos, all these things. So,
Well, whatever is writing material, I feel should be useful, even if it's the most secret or affective, full of pathos. Speaking against, even higher. It's not that kind of logic. There is an order to it, but it's of a different order. myself because I literally, until I got to the point where I said, I am a female reviewer, I did not see that coming. I did not see that I was going to end it the way I did, and that working through all of that took me there. And that's why I included the short quote from Cecilia, which artists, writers don't always know what we're going. But I wasn't afraid to let it take me there. For 30 years, I have loved this Gnostic tractate, The Thunder Perfect Mind. I have never written about it or included it in anything, but as I taught some years ago, the Rigorese essay, Plato's Hystera, there were lots of associations with it coming to me at Heidegger. So it just sort of, this is how it's been coming together in my head as I have understood histories of rhetoric and interventions in those histories in my own personal story. And I said it before Seeds, because somebody asked me this question. I said, you're doing all the affective labor up there. And thank you for that. I never thought of that. And then I said, well, you know, somebody asked the question about how does the academia value this kind of stuff.
On that note, we are out of time.
Okay.
Thank you again, Cynthia.
So, more breakfast.